top 10 games of 2019. Most years there are a couple of clear Game of the Year candidates that stand head and shoulders above the rest. But 2019 has been different. With several high-profile delays throwing a wrench into the works, there will be no unanimous winner this year. Instead, it's a case of splitting hairs as we try and pool the 10 very best from the pile of hundreds of releases. Number 10. Death Stranding. Hideo Kojima's first game since leaving Konami isn't what most people expected. Years passed before we ever learned its base concept of transporting cargo from point A to point B. Was this to keep players from souring on the game? We'll probably never know, but for many it's a far cry from the stealth and action-driven Metal Gear franchise. Yet, there's something cathartic about its rhythmic game loop, and its connectivity takes Dark Souls' helper mechanic and runs with it. One thing's for sure, we'll probably never play a more polished and interesting delivery sim. Number 9. Devil May Cry 5. At one point, Capcom was pushing out new Devil May Cry games every couple of years, but it's taken over a decade to get the 5th installment from the original development team. Was it worth the wait? It depends on who you ask. Longtime fans are thrilled that it sticks to its guns and remains a linear game with deep combat. Newcomers wonder why a big-budget game released in 2019 feels like it was developed in 2008. Regardless, 3 playable characters provide a lot of variety. Nero's Devil Breaker adds some stakes, and Dante's 4 combat styles bring the hero back in top form. Number 8. Fire Emblem: Three Houses. Strategy RPGs are generally a niche genre, but if there's one franchise that will convince non-believers to spend dozens of hours playing one, it's Fire Emblem. It's been a handheld series for most of its history, but it returned to consoles for the first time in 12 years with Three Houses for Switch. It's easily the best looking game in franchise history, but it also piles on the tactics with a new battalion system. Its Hogwarts-style school setting provides some familiarity while allowing you to expand and enhance your party in new and interesting ways. It's the best Fire Emblem game ever, and that's saying something. Number 7. The Outer Worlds. Microsoft recently purchased Obsidian, which means it's only creating games for Xbox and PC going forward. The Outer Worlds is one last parting gift for its fans on PlayStation. The studio's brand new IP looks and plays a lot like other recent action RPGs, so while it struggles to find its own identity, it's undoubtedly its most polished release yet. Featuring branching dialogue trees that actually go somewhere, and a rusty sci-fi setting filled with interesting characters and locales, it's an impressive keystone that can be built upon with sequels for years to come. Number 6. Disco Elysium. There's always at least one excellent game each year that hardly no one plays. That game for 2019 is Disco Elysium. With no physical combat to speak of, this RPG uses excellent writing, engrossing character development, and an off-the-wall premise to create a war of the worlds. If you're a fan of old-school RPGs that are more about the journey than the destination, this is your game of the year. Number 5. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. From Software created its own subgenre with the ultra-tough Souls franchise, and in 2019 it provided a new twist with Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Featuring a new combat system that asks you to break your opponent's guard before going in for the kill, it makes each skirmish a measured exercise of timing and cunning. It also imparts a lot more verticality and stealth into the gameplay. Set in feudal Japan and just as challenging as its progenitors, it's not for everyone, but From Software has literally managed to take its formula to new heights. Number 4. Luigi's Mansion 3. The first Luigi's Mansion is a GameCube launch game, and it shows. Featuring interesting concepts and stunning visuals, its lack of depth and short runtime reveal a game that had a hard release date. It's taken 18 years to get a console sequel, and Luigi's Mansion 3 shows the full potential of the concept. Just as much a toy to fiddle with as a structured experience, the joy of turning each room to shambles with Luigi's vacuum is hard to put into words. Its mechanics are airtight, it's the best looking game of 2019, and there's simply nothing else like it. It's time to add Luigi's Mansion to Nintendo's pantheon of regular recurring franchises. Number 3. Resident Evil 2. We played Resident Evil 2 when it originally released back in 1998, and while we enjoyed it back then, we wondered how it could still be relevant 2 decades later. Capcom has no such reservations, as it's remade this survival horror classic into one of the very best modern horror games. It strikes a perfect balance between the familiar and the new, making for a game that provides plenty of surprises. It's also a testament to the solid structure and design of the original. The gore is excruciatingly detailed, and the gameplay has been improved in all the right ways to make this seminal game a classic once more. Number 2. Control. Remedy has been known for Max Payne and Alan Wake for most of its history, but this generation it stepped out of its comfort zone while still keeping a foot in its past. The studio has a fascination with time, as evidenced by bullet time in Max Payne and the combat in the Xbox exclusive Quantum Break, but it veers towards the paranormal with Control. With telekinesis, every object becomes a weapon, and it's provided the most memorable combat of 2019. You can also take control of enemies and upgrade your morphing gun into a death machine. In a year full of sequels and remasters, Control is the best new IP from the last 12 months. Number 1. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars crossed with Dark Souls? That's what we were told. The real thing ended up being far more gentle and a lot more like Metroid, and that's a good thing. Yeah, we're definitely Star Wars fans, but Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the most complete game of 2019. From visuals to level design, to voice work, to combat, to story, it is the complete package. The game's labyrinthine design harkens back to Samus Aran's excursions, where you gain new abilities and then use them to unlock new portions of the world. It's also a solid entry in Star Wars canon, as it fills in the blanks after Revenge of the Sith. Then there's BD-1, the most adorable droid perhaps in the history of the IP. With no true weakness, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is our game of the year for 2019. It's been another great year for gaming, and with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X releasing next year, the good times will keep on rolling. Thank you so much for supporting us this year by being one of our patrons, subscribing via Twitch Prime, or just watching ads on YouTube. We appreciate every single one of you and can't wait to share all that's to come in 2020.